start that now. And if you have any questions or concerns about that, please let us know. So first, I can certainly try to make up some time here. There's not a lot to update on the board of directors side, other than, we're continuing to work on our strategic plan, and we are, we did not have our storytelling event in May. We were thinking of postponing it to October, but have decided to just go ahead and postpone it until May. World Breastfeeding Week is coming up in August, and so we are hoping to do something, not in person likely, but something to recognize that week and to elevate the voices of breastfeeding moms in the state of Maine. If you're interested in participating and planning for World Breastfeeding Week events, it could be anything. We're still talking about it. Then please either type your name in the chat box and your email address, or contact us at mainbreastfeeds@gmail.com. Also, if you are doing anything already for World Breastfeeding Week, please let us know, and we're happy to help share that around, and happy to help if we can. So before we move on to talking about trauma-informed care, I think this is a really timely topic to be talking about right now for a whole variety of reasons. And I also want to acknowledge that the memorial service for George Floyd is happening this afternoon. Some of you may know that. I believe it is being televised from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. So I want to thank you for being here today. Also want to understand if you're choosing to step off the meeting to participate in that. And in the meantime, I'd like for us to take a moment of silence to honor George Flynn and all of the other people of color in our country and state who have experienced racial injustice. So we will take this moment of silence for a full minute, and I encourage you to use this moment to breathe, center yourselves here, and reflect on ways that you can not only be present with yourself and your family during this time, but also how you can think about what white supremacy is and how that affects you individually, how it affects, or how you are affecting that and your families, the families that you work with and are a part of. And think about ways that you can help counteract that within yourselves and within our communities. I expect we might be able to talk about this a little bit more during the Connecting the Dots discussion later on. I have some resources I'm happy to share as well. But for now, feel free to either close your eyes or soften your gaze and breathe and take this moment of silence. Okay, so thank you all for taking that time, and feel free to share any of your thoughts during the later portion of the meeting. For now, I would love to welcome Dory Hacker. And some of you may remember Dory spoke at our meeting last summer in Augusta. And that was a trauma-informed care presentation, and we were thinking, let's do a second part to that presentation. This may be a part one with a little bit of part two. I'm not sure. It's whatever is timely and relevant in this moment. So I want to thank you, Dory, for being here again, and for all of you for joining to be a part of this discussion and learning time. So I'm going to change the presenter to you, Dory. Does that sound okay? Make you the presenter?
Yes, let me see. That shifts my capacity to share.
Okay, let me see.
You might have to unshare your screen too.
Okay, I just need to find you on the list here. I'm going to make you the presenter. And And right, stop sharing my, I think that made me stop sharing my screen. So now we just need to wait to view your screen.
So make that look this one I think I want. Did that work? Did you see anything?
Yeah, so we can see your presentation screen. We can see your title slide and then the next slide, that view that you have as a presenter.
Okay, I would prefer then to do, is that different?
It's the same. I know I've had this trouble before as well. You could maybe make the next slide a lot smaller if you don't want us to. There we go.
Is that better? Okay. Now I have to move you guys because you're right in front of it. So now I can't see it, but you guys can see it. So hold on just a second. Okay. So first of all, I have a bunch of different screens. So if it looks like I'm looking off into the distance, like, I don't know, off into the sunset, I'm really looking at you all. So this is me looking at you. This is me looking at my slides. So that's how that works. And so this is definitely a part of part one, because that's sort of what I gathered from our limited emails. So for sure, some of it will be a repeat, but I put in some pieces around also some self-care for you guys, because I know that that's been a really relevant aspect of this. I would like to say before I start going into the slides is don't worry so much about the words on the slides or trying to read them all on your screen. You'll get a copy of the slide deck, first of all, and it's much less about the bullet points when we're talking about relationally supporting somebody in a trauma-informed way, and it's much more about the conceptual stuff. So just, you know, where this all sits with you in your practice is probably the most relevant. Okay. So we know statistically that many women have experienced trauma either in their childhood and their adulthood. We know that trauma can impact pregnancy, labor and delivery, the birthing process, and the lactation experience. It can also sometimes impact the parent-child relationship and therefore child development. And so the other thing that's really important to know is that there's things that we can do as providers to support families as they're navigating potential trauma responses while they're having babies and breastfeeding and trying to go through that process. A trauma-informed approach just first of all recognizes that trauma can impact our experiences. Part of it is recognizing signs and symptoms that you might see, so we'll talk about those. To respond with a fully integrated knowledge about how trauma can impact others and sort of have that change the way we work so that we can be more trauma responsive. And then to actively resist re-traumatization. So sometimes breastfeeding can be a really stressful experience just depending on how that's going for an individual. And so really thinking through our messaging, especially with somebody with a trauma history. And the truth is we won't always know. So I always think of this as universal precautions, that a trauma-informed approach really just means that we're gonna hold this lens no matter who we're working with, because we don't know what their experiences have been. The mechanisms for which childhood stress can impact adulthood too is, you know, this is a ACEs diagram, adverse childhood experiences, where you can have high stress in the beginning of your life or a traumatic experience that renders the child more focused on survival than some other developmental tasks like speech, language, social emotional tasks like learning how to share in the sandbox, those kinds of things. And so if your brain's focused on survival, it's not focused on those other developmental tasks, which can lead to some impairment in grade school and even some high-risk behaviors or adaptive behaviors, really, as they go through life, and potentially even more disease and social problems. But at any stage of this, elements of resilience can come into play to mitigate those outcomes. So this is not an inevitability. This is really just what can happen if there's no intervention, if there's no support. So just statistically, 25 to 40% of all women have experienced some form of child sexual abuse. 65 have had more than one experience. 57% have experienced at the hands of somebody who they trust. And so some of the common themes might be something like feeling damaged, feeling evil or defective, or feeling a heightened need for control. We can just even with that recognize how that might come in if there's frustrations around breastfeeding. So the birth-feeding relationship may decide, the parent may decide to use formula because of that, maybe because of injury to the breast, and other emotional reasons or physiological reasons. Women are also at high risk of experiencing intimate partner violence or domestic violence. 9% of women experience such violence right around the time of pregnancy, and 1 in 5 Meaners experience sexual assault at some point in their lifetime. So we can sort of know that when we are doing our jobs and supporting new mothers, that there's a high chance that this woman has experienced some sort of threatening or traumatic event in their lifetime. In addition to that, there's some high statistics around birth trauma. So 25 to 34% report that their birthing experience was traumatic. So there's a lot of physiology of stress that comes into play during the birth process, complete with like reminders and feeling in danger. And there's also an increased risk for postpartum symptomology, like postpartum depression, anxiety, arousal, or detachment. So all of these things, again, can come into play. So this increases the risk for attachment disruption between parent and child, and it could cause a hesitance to breastfeed, at least at first. And we can understand this from a perspective of the physiology of the brain when we're under stress. So every human being experiences stress, every human being experiences a threat response. So our brains, when we are experiencing stress and high stress, we find that we're more in a heightened state of arousal, more focused on survival, and we notice that our brains just don't work as well in terms of thinking, problem solving, and reasoning. And for those of you who have had to make lots of changes under really short circumstances, maybe feel a lot of stress about what's going on in the world right now, can probably think of very recent examples where they're feeling like their brain just isn't working very well. I can't tell you how often I hear this in every single workshop I'm doing about resiliency. Oh, I can't even get out of my own way. My brain's just not working the way it typically is. And these are really normal things. Stress is normal. It's a normal response to extraordinary circumstances. Sometimes it's even necessary to have a stress response in order to survive. And sometimes it can take a toll, right? So it can sort of exhaust you. It can make it harder to function. But it's also important to remember that it's manageable as well. So here's just some symptoms of stress. So when we are experiencing stress, it can change our breathing. So I want you to think about this in terms of lactation, right? So if you're experiencing stress around lactation, changes in breathing, heart rate, muscle tension, inability to focus, maybe there's some sleep disruption, changes in digestion, stomach aches, body aches, irritability, cognitive challenges, and emotionality. So one definition of trauma, I'm going to give you two during this workshop. One definition of trauma is an experience that's experienced by the individual as physically or emotionally harmful or threatening. And what makes a potentially traumatic event a traumatic experience for somebody is the lasting adverse effects. That's really what sort of goes from, I had a potentially traumatic event like a car accident, but I woke up the next day and was fine, totally right back on track, did not have lasting effects, versus how I really had a hard time getting back in the car for like a month, right? So that what makes something turn into what's defined as trauma is those lasting adverse effects on an individual's capacity to function, physically, socially, emotionally, or spiritually. And when there is trauma, what we do find is that our brain starts to adapt to safety and danger differently. And so those who have experienced trauma find that their brain has difficulty relaxing, are more quickly elevated by stress. So I work with trauma survivors almost exclusively in my practice right now. And, you know, this is very, very common that something like, I'm going to get this in late for my deadline, that even that level of stress will start to be like a house of cards, and all of the trauma responses come in. So it's like having a sensitive smoke alarm. And again, you might find that through lactation, like, I'm so frustrated, I can't, like just a very elevated response to stress. And this is when the thinking brain turns off and the doing brain, the thinking brain turns off and the doing brain takes over. So the other definition of trauma is an overwhelming demand placed on the physiological human system that results in a profound sense of vulnerability and loss of control. And I can't think of a better definition of labor and delivery for a woman either, or being a new parent. Just overwhelming demand placed on your physiological human system that results in a profound sense of vulnerability and loss of control. So when you think of trauma survivors who are also having a new experience that is not in itself traumatic, but mirrors some of those same experiences of life, feeling out of control, feeling totally overwhelmed physically, that those two things can start to equalize in a person's brain if they have had that kind of experience. So we talked about recognizing signs and symptoms. And this doesn't mean that you become a diagnostic body. It just means that you sort of know, it sort of gives you some idea of what you might be seeing. You don't want to make assumptions. All of this could be coming from something other than trauma, but arousal, sleep issues, increased risk for anxiety and depression, avoidance or detachment, intrusive thoughts, dissociative reactions, trauma-related reminders, thoughts and feelings, so mood, shame, guilt, fears, and then beliefs about the world, about safety and danger. But please remember that there's no uniform response, that reactions may depend on where the mother is in her own healing process. It may impair parents' ability to regulate their emotions, and it could be triggered by other medical stressors as well. But the implications for lactation are things like either an elevated pain response or more numb, like they just have a really high pain threshold and they don't know when to stop and say this is too much, right? So thinking about sleep, immune system, depression, shame and self-blame if lactation isn't going well, self-esteem, self-efficacy, mistrust and hostility, and emotion regulation. So again, just thinking about the impact here, there could be reminders and triggers and emotions. I think about for some, like having their baby bite their nipple, how that could be like pain on a body that's sometimes used for sexual assault purposes as well. There might be a really heightened need for privacy, and I know that there's sort of this sort of jump right in, no shame, all bodies, we know all this, but for some, having privacy could be really an important factor to feeling like they have some control. So thinking through that sense of feeling like they can reclaim their body and have some voice and choice. thinking through health and immunity, and finding ways to build resilience. What might surprise you is that actually trauma survivors have a higher rate of initiating breastfeeding. They do want to overcome some of these stressors statistically, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it comes without some physiological or emotional barriers along the way. So I talked a lot about the negative outcomes, and it's always really important. It's that realize, recognize, and respond. So realizing these things can have an impact, but also never forgetting the other side of the coin, which is that women, mothers, fathers, they are resilient, they are strong. And when we know that there's resilience, we can tap into it, we can foster it. Resilience isn't static, it can be built. So there's things we can do to even build resilience if it seems like resilience is low. There's many different definitions of resilience as well, but this is my favorite. It's not only the capacity to thrive under stress, but it's also the strength and ability of families, providers, communities to provide the support needed to adapt and thrive. And what I like to think about with resilience is, what are the internal factors of resilience? Like, what skills do I have within me to handle and cope? And then what are the external factors of resilience? Like, do I have a support system? Do I have the information I need? Do I have the nutrition I need? All of the things that sort of help with that resiliency piece. So a trauma-informed approach comes with these 6 principles. And first and foremost is safety. And safety is both emotional safety and physical safety. And what I would say is that emotional safety is also physical safety, right? So if somebody doesn't feel emotionally safe, they may start to feel unsafe physiologically, like sort of go into fight, flight, or freeze. And safety is what slows down the nervous system so the rest of this can be employed. So really being transparent about your role, what you can and can't do, building trust, allowing for choice, not putting your hands on the steering wheel of lactation, you're collaborating with, and really empowering that person to talk about their fears and worries and concerns and sort of come up with a plan together. And cultural competence could really use a 3-day training on its own, but really in the shortest way possible is to, at the very least, understand your own cultural biases and lenses, and recognize that you come to this work with your own belief systems, what it means to cope, what it means to be healthy, what are your lenses, and recognize how your lenses might be impacting how you're interpreting somebody else's. So one of the exercises I'll often do with people when I have a little bit more time is to have them fill out some sheets to really reflect on, what did I learn about coping from my family? What did I learn about parenting? What's a good parent? What's a bad parent? All of those things. And just to try to recognize, oh, that's my lens, because that's not necessarily the same lens or the same cultural framework that everybody is coming from. And when we at least recognize our own, we can slow down, pause, set our sort of like cultural agenda over here to really hear what's important and what matters most to the person right in front of us. I discovered this when I was looking for some teaching around trauma-informed lactation consultation, and I didn't develop this myself, but I think this is a great framework. It really starts with seeking your patient's participation, help them explore and compare options around lactation, assessing your patient's values and preferences, reach a decision with them, and then evaluate it as you're going. We know that there are so many benefits to breastfeeding around building attachment. Women often find that breastfeeding is a way to reclaim the body after trauma, so that's been a really beautiful reframe for many women. Health and immunity, building physiological and emotional resiliency for mother and child, so knowing that breastfeeding can help with immunity and emotional resiliency. it's found to be healing and build emotional connection and experiencing that healthy touch. And it can be a protection from maltreatment, according to some studies. So there may be some differing beliefs around breastfeeding, differing beliefs between the mother and your knowledge and beliefs and feelings. And if we don't sort of recognize that we come in with those, it can contribute to guilt or sadness or embarrassment or fear of judgment. And I would just say, there's not a mother on this planet who worries about fear of judgment, because everybody's got a different story about what good parenting is. And every parent has been judged by somebody, because there is no one way to do it. And so just understanding that fear of judgment and somebody trying to find their own way. And I should just say, I know you guys know so much of this. So this isn't me assuming that you guys don't know how to be compassionate and recognize that families are coming from different places and are worried about being judged. From an attachment standpoint, so within my work around trauma, I also work from a framework of attachment and recognizing that this attachment is the emotional connection between infant and their primary caregiver. And we could go right back to the very first studies around attachment with the rhesus monkey, which was not a very fun study to read about, but it talks about this monkey that was given a soft monkey and a monkey with a bottle that was made out of wire. And what they found is that the monkey did not attach to the wire monkey that created sustenance. It attached to the soft monkey. So really, the attachment comes more from comfort than from sustenance. And I think that's really important to remember as we're sort of navigating the lactation consultation process. So attachment is promoted by empathic attunement. So I see you, I'm responding to you, I'm available, I'm reliable. It's reliant on this co-regulation. So I'm with you, I'm going to get calm to help you get calm. So it's a nonverbal connection with babies. And it's auditory and visual and tactile, it's rocking, it's eye contact, it's serve and return. So when I think about regulation too, I also think about how we can sort of co-regulate our clients when they're feeling elevated by our own sense of calm. So some of the things you can do is to provide some positive feedback around mom's role and what they're doing to promote sort of a positive narrative around things that are going on. Get a sense if she's willing to share her history and worries and hopes and expectations so that you know that going in. There's a lot of suggestions around just listening to fears and concerns around lactation and sort of getting a deeper understanding about what comes up so that you can respond and start where they are and with their goals and desires. Just sort of pacing this process. So providing voice and choice, asking before you lean in physically to assist, reducing shame and guilt, and then co-developing some coping strategies. And this is the second bullet here is really important. Sometimes it's just like, I don't know, I don't want to breastfeed, or it's too hard, or it's painful. Try to be as specific as possible about what about breastfeeding is hard. Help them identify it. They may not know. They might not have yet identified that nighttime is harder, that there's some nighttime triggers, or they might not have identified that the positioning is hard, that there's pain triggers. So just try to get as specific as possible about what's working, what's not working, and specific around needs for privacy, the environment, when whether they want to be physically touched or verbally coached. Think about small goals, short-term solutions, and just take your time. This is one of those situations where I honestly believe the slower you go, the quicker it goes. So when we're sort of in a hurry to make things happen quickly because the baby needs food and we got, all that stuff, it just elevates the stress level, which we know reduces the capacity for the release of breast milk and those things. So just like take an extra 5 minutes and do some breathing exercises, calm things down, let's try again. The slower you go, so often the quicker it goes. And if breastfeeding isn't possible for any reason, medically, emotionally, just remember that cloth monkey piece. And there's some suggestions you can provide moms in that situation too. So like when they're pumping, to focus on thoughts of the child, to consider all of the other ways that they can promote attachment and attunement, other protective factors that they can do during during feeding and otherwise. So just that co-regulation, attunement, the bonding is still possible. Not all is lost if breastfeeding is not able to happen. And I just have this little quote here also: people start to heal the moment they feel heard. That can really slow down people's nervousness, to just feel like we're right here, we can do this, you're not alone, okay? And just recognize that when we're working with families who've experienced trauma, it can be really rewarding, but sometimes it can feel like change happens slowly. And it can happen slowly, but every effort you make makes a difference. Every compassionate, kind, patient response that you have, the unconditional positive regard, the reducing shame, trust that all of those things make so much more of a difference. And even think about how some women don't have somebody who's just nurturing and kind in their life during these hard times, you know? So the impact of just having that soft landing. I think about times in my own life when I've had a hardship or struggle. I didn't need anybody to fix it for me. I just needed a soft landing, right? Just somebody to be like, I got you, I'm right here, right? So these are, I'm just going to finish up with a few slides for you guys, just recognizing that not only are our families dealing with a lot of uncertainty, sometimes trauma and economic hardship and grief, but we as providers are having this parallel experience of also having a lot of upheaval, doing things differently, trying to parent while we're working, while we're this or we're that. And also either experiencing very real loss and grief for people that we know and love, or some loss and grief for some, you know, more national or global experiences that are going on in terms of COVID-19, in terms of the economy, and in terms of racial injustice right now. And we could layer on a few more, but I won't flood you too much today. Can feel like a tsunami. And so we have our own stress and brain response, right? So that we have times when we feel like our brains aren't working very well. And when there's a prolonged stress, we can start to feel like our bodies and minds are sort of lowering in their well-being, right? So we might start to feel like my adrenaline that I had those first few weeks is kind of tapped out, and now I'm exhausted. And I was doing a workshop for a group of people who are home visitors yesterday, and I was doing these relaxation techniques, and oh my goodness, one of the staff members was like, I just think I need to lay down. Like, just the exhaustion level can sometimes kick in for us as well. And it can affect us emotionally, our own behaviors, our own physiology, some of our social connection, cognitive capacities, and our own beliefs about what's good in the world, those kinds of things. So, you know, keep an eye on that, because prolonged stress can have an impact. But the good news is that we can also build our own resilience, and resilience building can impact all of these areas as well, including emotional, cognitive capacity, our belief systems. And I wish I'd had the slide here just for the imagery, but I've got this great picture of, you know, the trees and all their roots. And when you have in the woods, there's just profound stability and strength, not just because the trees have their own roots holding them together, but everybody's roots are intertwined. which is what really creates a foundation of strength. And so when I think about resiliency building in these times, there's an individual approach, and then there's a group approach. How do we take care of each other too? This is an adaptation from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's Stages of Grief. And it's been put out there as one of the ways of thinking about how we're adapting to ever-changing times right now. And so we get like new information, we've got that awareness, we start to feel uncertainty, maybe some fear and resistance, maybe paralysis. I love that they name it the Valley of Despair, because I do think that we have these moments, you know. And then, you know, so that's just a recognition that that's what's happening for many. And many of you may have felt that 3 weeks in, and I would have said, you're not failing. This is the normal response, and you will start to roll up your sleeves soon and start to innovate and adapt. And my guess is you guys have had phases of that where you're able to adapt and accept some of the new normals. I was doing this, as I said, a training yesterday, and somebody said, I kind of feel like I'm on a half pipe in that curve, right? So much is changing and happening all at once that we are sort of cycling in and out of that. And what I'm finding for myself, and I think other people are finding too, is sometimes I'm in a state of paralysis or exhaustion or uncertainty, and then the next day I wake up and I am feeling more robust and resilient and able to roll up my sleeves. And I think in times like this is where the team is so important. I like to say we take turns, right? So one person is like, you know what, I got this today. I can take care of that, because I can just tell you're, you know, you're not at your best, and then the next day you get to take a turn, right? So just, I had said in the beginning, perfection is overrated. It really is. And I put this all out there to just normalize anybody who's feeling increased shame for having a hard time, because that's coming up a lot. Like, why am I'm not even on the front lines, or I'm not even this, or I'm not even that. And when really this is just a human response to stress. None of us are immune. When that's happening though, I really want you to think about the basics first. So that foundation, like, am I drinking enough water? Am I eating healthy food? Am I getting some sleep? Do I need to have a few more pause buttons throughout the day to keep my nervous system regulated? So am I getting some oxygen and breath? Am I getting movement? Am I stuck at my chair all day long and I'm just not releasing any of the stress at all? So I have this little sink here as a metaphor around, like, what's the stuff that we let in? What are we doing to reinforce our holding environment? But even that eventually does get flooded and saturated, right? We do need opportunities to let it go. And sometimes that also looks like processing with a colleague or a staff member, things that are going on at work, a supervisor. And at home, it's like, find your friends, make meaningful connections, have game nights, yes, but also make meaningful connections that are where you do feel like you've got that attunement to each other. And then finally, self-compassion and check-ins. So I'm not going to do an exercise, but I'll tell you that there's just so much research around taking 2 minutes, taking some belly breaths, doing a body scan, and then just asking yourself, what do I need today? So just these little check-ins, right? So we talk about serve and return and relational stuff between mom and baby. And guess what? Even when we're grown-ups, we still need a check-in. Like, how am I? What do I need? And maybe what you need is water. Maybe what you need is supervision. Maybe what you need is a walk or information. It doesn't matter what the answer is, but then you can make a committed action around, oh, that's going to help me be more grounded today. So we're not talking about some sort of static state of resilience where you do a training with Dory at a coalition meeting and now you're resilient, right? I mean, you're already resilient. You guys are all amazing. But really, this is so much more about recognizing that our work is like riding a wave, right? And I've just been using this metaphor a lot lately, where when we are surfing, well, I don't surf, but you know, when people surf, and when we're surfing the waves of uncertainty, there's this concept called hanging loose, right? So you've got your feet sturdy on the board, but if you just stayed still, you'd topple in a second, right? Like there's this sense of being present and adaptive and responsive and recognizing that there's going to be toppling over sometimes, but then you just get back on and you just find that equilibrium. So it isn't about being perfect or being in a perfect state of resilience at all times. It's about recognizing that you are resilient, utilizing your internal skills, as we talked about earlier, tapping into your external skills, anchoring into your breath, knowing what's important and what matters, doing that so that you can get back to doing your work in the world, your work with your families, all of those things. And so it's just this, oh, I'm saturated, the sink is full, I gotta do my job to take care of myself so that I can do this more. And just really thinking through how you put your own oxygen mask on first before trying to help others. And this is on a handout that I sent out too, but don't forget to support each other and do check-ins and press the pause button and attend to your teams. And I'll just end with this. It's just an acknowledgement that you guys are doing amazing and beautiful work every day. And this quote, here's to all the unseen acts of love that made the world go around today. So I know I'm a little over, but I know we started a little late too. And I can be available for the next 5 minutes if people have thoughts or questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dory. That was awesome. And I love how you ended that with that quote. I think we're seeing so many acts of hate right now and acts of love. They're out there, but they're often unseen. So I appreciate that. And the recognition that everyone on this call is doing really excellent work.
How do I unshare so you guys can get back to?
I think I can probably take over again, but I'm going to keep that up right now while people have questions, if that's okay. Yeah, what questions or thoughts do people have? Feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type it into the chat box if your audio is not working as well.
Or even just like, this is how that resonates with me.
I have a question as a doula, just trying to talk about trauma during prenatal appointments. You know, I guess I'm wondering what the best way, or one of, you know, the best ways is to kind of say that, you know, because I do, sometimes it can feel like checklists when you're going through all the questions. And so just to have a sensitive way to approach, you know, what your past trauma has been like.
Yeah, so one of the ways that we do it for screening in the pediatric and labor and delivery units is to ask a sort of generalized question like, we ask everybody because we know that many people have experienced violent or traumatic experiences when they were younger, and we know that sometimes that can impact them either in their pregnancy or afterwards. So we like to just give people an opportunity to let us know if they'd like to share some of the experiences they've had that they think could come up or might come up. And some people might be like, nope, or yes, but I don't want to talk about it. And that's, voice and choice is so important there to say that is not a problem. And if it comes up for you, it's okay to bring it up then, you know? So if you decide later you'd like to talk about it, we can talk about it then.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. And I think we had mentioned before that it can also be okay to assume that everyone has experienced some trauma and to do all of the things that you've recommended here with everyone that we work with. And Dory did send me the PDF of her presentation and some other handouts that we will include with our minutes. And if you don't already know, we do have our minutes up on our website. I know we haven't been great about emailing them out to everyone, but that's a practice that we will really try to get back into the habit of, and including these wonderful resources too.
I was just going to add, Amanda, that one of the reasons we say we know it's common, we ask everybody, is it really takes that, like, it's only me, I'm the only one. It really, normalization is a huge factor in having people feel more and more comfortable talking about it. And also it gives them the understanding that you're comfortable talking about it, because oftentimes trauma survivors, they can handle it, but they're not sure their providers can, right? So.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I know you have to step off, Dory, so we might continue to talk about this for a few minutes in our next portion of our meeting, but we really appreciate you coming here. And your contact information, if people have, do you want to type that into the chat box if you want to put your contact info out if anyone has any questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that now.
Okay,
Looking fun.
right. And I'm going to take the screen back again. Okay. And adjusting my windows as well here.
So I just popped my email in there for you all. And I hope you have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So before we transition to the next part of the meeting, does anyone have any other thoughts or questions or points to discuss in the next few minutes as we kind of transition? I know it's a lot of information, and when we were listening, you may have been thinking about both your own trauma or your own lives and the families that you work with. So I want to recognize that listening to a presentation about trauma can be re-traumatizing in some ways as well, and can really bring up some things for our own selves. And so feel free to share, what experiences you've had working with people with trauma, or also thinking about when she was talking about resilience. I found it was really interesting. She talked about the internal mechanisms and external mechanisms, and how internal are really about coping skills and coping mechanisms, and then external is really about the support system and what is external to their minds and their bodies, and helping them build that resilience. And I think that everyone here on this call is working every day with families to help build their external supports and their external resilience. And so I'm curious if anyone has anything to share about ways that you've helped families build internal resilience or coping skills. I think coping mechanisms are so important for everyone, and so important in the postpartum period. Coping with the transition to being a mom, coping with breastfeeding challenges, or just any sort of questions that they have and stressors. Is that anything that you're all doing? I know we have a lot of home visitors on the phone and on the call, and WIC counselors as well, and doulas. And I'm happy to give an uncomfortable moment of pause while people think about what they want to share, if you want to. And maybe someone's sharing, but they're muted. That's always an option too. So if you're like, why is no one responding to me? It might be. You're also welcome to type in the chat box as well. I know when I facilitate the breastfeeding group through Maine Medical Center, we always start out with a mindful rest stop. We close our eyes, we take some deep breaths, kind of very similar to what she was describing as a mindful check-in. I'm trying to remember what she had called it. And we do a body scan, and I ask people to check in with how they're feeling physically. And as we're doing that body scan, noticing where points of tension might be and where they can breathe into those points of tension, and just trying to connect with our bodies physically and honor the parts of our bodies that are really serving us and our babies really well, which are often breasts, uterus, pelvic floor, all of those parts of our body that are so impressive. And then checking in with how we're feeling emotionally and mentally, and recognizing and reminding them that in the support group, we're a safe space for everyone to be sharing any and all emotions and thoughts. So I feel like that is something that's nice for in that moment in the group, but also a really helpful skill for people to know that they can always just do that. It doesn't take very long, and it's that breath and that movement and check in with their body and emotions is so important and helpful. All right, I see Ruth has chatted in and said, I think she may have just sent this to me, but I will read it. Just an observation in my work, I'm finding it is really important to check in. I just had an experience that my helpful, curious questioning was increasing anxiety for a mom. And by checking in and backing off, I was able to make a better connection. That's a great point, Ruth. And other people may have noticed times when they've done that. And, so checking in with them, checking in with yourself, and how that interaction is going is so important. And especially when it comes to breastfeeding support and lactation, I think a lot of people sometimes feel that their support people, lactation consultant, nurse, whatever, can be pushy and can be coming on a little stronger than they would like. So you're more likely to take your time. I think Dory had said that, just like to slow down a bit and to make a different connection aside from questions. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I really liked the observation that some people find having privacy with breastfeeding a way to feel like they have some control over the situation. Because right now it seems like there's a huge movement to, breastfeed in public and not cover, and it's really like this pride thing to do that. And so I hadn't really thought about that part, that it might feel like, I know some people want more privacy, but the fact that it can feel like a control that they have over the situation. So that was a good reminder to hear.
Mm-hmm. And she had also encouraged us to kind of check in with our own cultural biases and lenses. And that's so important. So it might be, whether it's a racial bias or lens that we have that we grew up with and we're maybe actively working to change or at least be aware of. She talked about realizing, recognizing, and then responding. And that's a process that we might all be doing with the work that we do and specific to our own, lenses and biases that we have. But it might also be something like, what are our, so again, it might not be a race bias necessarily, but it might be a bias around what breastfeeding is all about and how, some people may feel like breastfeeding, like it's not that hard. What's the big deal? Or it might hurt for a little bit, but then you get over it. Like, what do we think about when we think about breastfeeding? And are we judging at all when we're seeing that people are having a hard time or that it's not going as well? I think it's great for us to be aware of those areas that we might have some different judgments. So last call for any thoughts on this topic, and then we'll transition to the connecting the dots portion of the meeting.
I was just going to say, I've been thinking and paying a lot of attention, like working with moms right now who are feeling anxious and maybe extra hard on themselves, or there's this heightened sense, I think, of like, am I doing the right thing? Like, what is the right thing to do? And that's so common always in postpartum. But I think right now there's all these added layers of uncertainty. And I've just been really focusing on pointing out what they're doing really well, to point it out for themselves, but also to model for them this idea of like giving yourself props and looking for paying attention to the positive and what you're doing well instead of focusing on what you don't know or what you're not doing or shoulding all over yourself.
Right. That's a great point. I know she had mentioned too at the end about meaningful connections, I think. I'm trying to remember what her slide said, but how important it is for us to be connecting with other people. And I also know how stressful that can also be when you're talking about what is the safest way to connect with people. You know, can I be sitting across from someone on my back deck, and should I be wearing a mask, and how do I have that conversation, and what if we're not on the same page? And so in some ways it's like, it's just easier not to even try to have kind of interactions, and that's not good either.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to our connecting the dots portion of the meeting. I'm looking over here because I have another monitor with this agenda up. So I believe you can all see the shared screen here with the agenda. It's easier for me to see it over here. But for this portion of the meeting, which will essentially be for the next half an hour or so, for us to share what's happening maybe legislatively around the state, what else is going on in Maine that you'd like to share, what new research ideas are emerging, and are you having any challenges in your work that we could help with? And this could look different today based on where the state of Maine is and where the country is, where the world is, these discussions and what you're seeing, what's happening, what challenges you're having. So just share wherever you're at and what whatever information or thoughts or questions you'd like to pose. It's wide open here. And maybe I think what we've done before, and I think I'm going to do this, and I apologize if you're feeling super on the spot, but you definitely have the option to pass. But I think I'm going to go down the attendee list and just check in with you. And again, you have the option to say, oh, I saw this. No worries, Lindsay. It's easy to do that for some reason. You might not have this amazing new research article that you want to share, or anything really earth-shattering to share in the world of breastfeeding. It might just be, how you are doing today. So any of that is fine. If you could share, again, you have the option to pass. So I'm going to go down the attendee list and call on you and ask if you have anything you'd like to share, and we will continue on that way. So Amanda, you are the first one up on the attendee list from what I'm seeing.
Hello. I did want to give an opportunity if anybody wanted to give me information. I'm being interviewed by an author of a persuasive advocacy book, and he wants to talk to me about COVID and how that has changed for doulas and lactation counselors. And I honestly haven't had that many personal clients. I've had friends during this. So I'm wondering, if anybody has any anecdotes or things that they want to say that they feel like has really come up. I feel like I've seen, doulas can't be in the hospitals in Maine right now. So that's been a hard thing, just figuring out how to be virtually supportive when doulas really love to be, in your face. They love to be right there holding your hand. So I feel like that's been difficult. I don't know if anybody's struggled with mom and baby being separated, or just different concerns around COVID and breastfeeding that you've seen. So I would love to pass around any of that advocacy if you have it.
Amanda, is there any information or contact information you want to put in the chat box so people can reach out to you if they have more to?
Yeah, it's at 3:30, so anything you have would be good, but I'll just put my email in here.
I can share something. Is that okay?
Yeah,
who's talking?
I'm a family visitor around Kennebec and Somerset County, and I just had 4 new babies born with the families that I serve. And they had really positive experiences during this COVID prior to, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Prior to going into the hospital at the beginning of May, everybody was concerned about not having their partners with them, worried about how if COVID was going to spread to their baby, how long they would be required to stay in the hospital, all those kinds of things. And all 4 of them experienced very positive times with their nurses, with their delivery doctors, and with the lactation consultant. I don't think was there, but coming out, one of the 3 stated, and they're all for breastfeeding. One stated, "This COVID is the best thing for my breastfeeding because I can walk around my house naked and nobody's coming over."
Right.
Very, very thrilled because with her first child, she had to learn to with the first child, she had to learn to breastfeed within 6 weeks and then go back to work. And at work, people would walk in on her while she was pumping. And so she felt very self-conscious about coworkers seeing her pumping and then gossiping about her and that kind of thing. Now she can't go back to work, and she's thrilled because now she can be free at home to breastfeed the second child with no interruptions. But I just wanted to say that the experience at the hospital was very positive, and I don't always hear that. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really good to hear. I do think that, I mean, unfortunately, COVID has a lot of bad parts to it, but there have been parts that have had us slowing down and have people, you know, be able to be at home more and work from home. So yeah, that's good. It's good to hear the positive stories. So thank you.
Yeah, and I've been on a number of calls every week with representatives from hospitals in northern New England and hearing about their challenges. And you can definitely get I have definitely felt that the staff in the hospitals want to do the right thing. They want to do the best things for these patients, and that can be tough when it comes to maternal child separation. No one wants to do that, but is that really the best thing? And no one's taking these decisions lightly in the healthcare world, it seems like. So that has been really good to see. And the call that I was on just before this meeting, there's someone speaking from Lowell General Hospital, I believe, in Massachusetts, and she spoke about the 5 C's that they have come up with in their care related to COVID. And I'm going to paste that and put that in the chat box. And I think that a lot of us do this in our work, but they're just such good reminders: that compassion, calm, confident, communication, and confidentiality. Just keeping those 5 C's in mind at all time with their care. And the visitor policy can be really hard and stressful for some people, but a pro for others. Not only that maybe family members or friends might not be coming as often in the hospital, but also staff members aren't coming into their rooms as often. You know, there's not the photographer or the, there just aren't as many people who would normally be coming into their room and interrupting that time. So yeah, it's a lot of weighing those pros and cons for sure.
What hospital was that had the 5 C's?
I think it was Lowell General Hospital. It was in Lowell, Massachusetts. And she just talked a lot about shared decision making too, and how majority of the 5 cases that they've had so far of COVID, the mothers chose not to breastfeed, or one chose to pump and dump, and they were providing a lot of education around the safety of breast milk and breastfeeding. But ultimately, this is what these parents were choosing for a variety of reasons, and just how it can be hard when you know that the evidence might not be supporting a decision that they're making, but we have to still listen to them and be empathetic and gentle and take our time with them. And it was really good to hear that coming from I think she was a mother baby nurse manager. So thank you, Amanda. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
I think that's it.
Okay, thanks. Amy, you are up next on the list. What would you like to share or ask?
I think there's two things that are on my mind. One is sort of interesting, stems the other side of that, the not going back to work or they're going back to work. There was a huge article in the New York Times this morning about how the pandemic could scar the next generation of working mothers. And so really all these changes, what they mean, in some ways the positive being home and breastfeeding more, and other ways the negative, the added stress of childcare and like juggling everything. And so I think it's a lot on my mind of what is the shifting landscape looking like for mothers and working mothers, and breastfeeding as a huge part of that. And I feel like that conversation is being elevated. And I also think in many ways, a lot of mothers are getting more vocal about the state of what's going on and how will employers relate to that. And so I guess it's not really a question, but it's something I'm sort of digesting and sitting with on my mind. And then probably like the rest of us, I'm just, really consumed with thoughts about how can I, in the position and in the support we offer, think about changing our system of racism, and are we doing enough, and what could we be doing differently, and how do we elevate all the community voices that are part of my work and change things. And I don't have the right answer, but we're looking at that and thinking about that. And so I think I'm just in a place of sort of introspection right now about what's happening in our world and what that means for how we can support as things shift.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Amy. Samantha, Sam, you still with us? So I don't know if Samantha Blanchard, if you're still with us, we don't see or hear you, but if you have anything to share. Okay, we might come back and move on. And you're also welcome to just type anything into the chat box. It's always great to hear any latest updates with WIC. Brooke, I see you're there.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I've been thinking, so coming at it from my perspective working in government, this current crisis or multitude of crises we're facing have really revealed a lot about our social safety net programs. I think that we have assumptions that, okay, if we have an unemployment system, okay, we have a food assistance program, we have rental assistance, we have these programs, they must be basically working. And having such a huge influx of new people coming into these programs and all kinds of different people who haven't accessed the social safety net before has been really revealing and really shown a whole new level of systemic failure for most of them, honestly. So that's been, it's a huge learning opportunity, and I think it's a huge challenge, but opportunity for us in government moving forward to figure out how to make these systems work better and work for all people. So a lot of that, coalesces with programs like WIC and other government programs that breastfeeding women and young families rely on. So it's just, it's a lot of questions and very few, if any, answers, but that's something I've been mulling over a lot and trying to make a little bit of sense of.
Excellent. Thank you, Brooke. And does anyone have any other thoughts, or are you seeing the same things? Anything you want to add to that? I'm realizing I don't think contact information for our board members are listed on our website, but I think we should make that happen. So Amy, who is just speaking, is on our board and doing a lot of workplace support efforts. And Brooke, as she mentioned, works for Speaker Gideon's office and is working in government a lot. And she's also on our board. And I think it's good to know your contact information, just for people on the call to know that they are great contacts if you have questions or if you want to be doing more in those areas, or if you, again, just have a question that they might be able to help you with. So again, if anyone wants to put in their name and contact information, I know I mentioned name and organization that you work with, if you could type that into the chat box, but your contact information would be great too for anyone on the call. Whether you're on the board or not, anyone who's on the call, feel free to include that info so we can know how to reach each other. And caller one, I know you might not know if you're listed as caller one, but if you are on the phone and you are not otherwise listed, would you like to go next and share anything that's going on in your world or thoughts or questions?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if I'm caller one. I'm Danielle Godine. I'm a family visitor with Maine Families in Kennebec County. And my recent frustration has just been with the lack of face-to-face contact and trying to help somebody when it is so difficult to observe what's going on with a latch, or it's just really hard. And especially I have a new mom who I have not met personally at all. So to try to make that connection by phone or by Zoom, and then for her to be comfortable enough to open up and then try to give support that way is really difficult. And she can't get it through WIC right now. So to have that lack of face-to-face help is that's just really frustrating right now. And that's kind of what I'm dealing with right now.
Yeah, I hear that. Any other thoughts or suggestions or any from anyone else on the call related to that?
Or is anybody doing face-to-face support right now? No.
I was going to say with WIC, it's hard because like some babies that were born in late March, we haven't seen yet. And so we've been trying to follow them through doctor's appointments if they've had doctor's appointments, and offering support through there and with that. And so it has been really hard to not see those babies face to face for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear me. I lost video, but this is Allison. Can you hear me okay?
You're breaking up a lot, Allison, but give it a shot. We'll see if we can make out what you're saying.
Okay, so we have started to see babies under 6 months. We offer for them to come in. Did you hear that part?
You're seeing babies under 6 months. You're offering for them to come in. Can you remind us where you are?
So we cover WIC in Somerset and Kennebec County.
WIC in Somerset and Kennebec counties. Okay.
Yeah, and so everything else then, like Jen said, has been done by phone. And so that has been really hard for us, but we just started this week by offering that in person. But as you can imagine, many families are still very reluctant.
Allison, I was having a hard time with that. Are you able to type that into the chat box so we can read it? Okay. Thanks. And I know that your local hospitals might also be offering lactation support in person or through telemedicine. So that might be an option for people. It may not, but I understand that this is certainly a challenging time, and also not knowing how long this is going to last, right? How long these restrictions will be there, and what guidance might be coming, and how comfortable we are with the guidance as it changes too. Hear that. Okay. So Allison said most appointments by phone, but offering in person for babies under 6 months. Okay. So we have another caller on the phone. If you're also on the phone and want to share something, now's your good chance. Okay, we're going to move on then. Again, feel free to use the chat box if you have that option. Cindy, you are up next on the list. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, it's been really difficult doing those appointments by phone in WIC. We won't be seeing anybody in our offices in Franklin, Oxford, and Androscoggin until the end of August. We're looking at ways to make our offices safer for everyone, you know, and keeping in mind the social distancing and everything. It's definitely been a challenge. Our breastfeeding peer counselor is trying to set up Zoom chats to reach out to pregnant moms and breastfeeding moms and referring on. But again, to do a latch assessment over video is a lot more difficult than having somebody sit with you. So it's definitely a challenge. We are also looking to hire extra support. We have a nutrition counselor position open for the Auburn WIC office. And we also have a breastfeeding peer counselor position open for the Auburn WIC office. So if you know of anybody who has exclusively breastfed for 6 months and has had some experience with WIC, please send them our way with a resume because we really do need the extra support. Our current peer counselor has, I think, 180 participants, which is a lot for one person. So we need to spread that out a little bit.
Cindy, I don't know if you already added your contact information in the chat box, but please do that. Or if you have a link handy where people could go to a website and share that with people, that would be great. And with that too, if I don't know if anyone has, you know, with these limitations, not being able to help people one-on-one directly with latch and that sort of thing, has anyone found any videos or anything that you have sent moms so that they could watch for education? If you have any educational videos or websites that you have found helpful, please enter those into the chat box if you can. Anytime between now and 3, and we'll try to make that available for folks. All right, Cindy, anything else? Thank you for sharing that.
That's it.
All right. Donna, you're up next. Donna, Alice, are you still with us? We can't hear you if you're trying to speak.
I am still with you. It took me a few minutes to stop writing and then to unmute myself. But the one thing I had was, and I was started typing in the chat box, this I just received recently, information from Global Health Media, and I'll finish by putting the specifics in the box, but it has information for individuals, videos for birth, and beyond, so breastfeeding. It has quite a bit of good information that we can share with mothers, or we can look at and point mothers to help with things such as position, latch, frequency, things of concern.
Thanks, Donna. And it also, I think they have a number of different languages available.
Yes.
On that website.
Yes. Yes, and I don't know how directly they're connected with World Health Organization, but definitely World Health Organization has utilized this information. It's available in 21 languages, so that is very helpful to a wide range of individuals.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you, Donna. Anything else you want to share or ask?
No, that's all. Well, let me just say that I am overwhelmed with our with things that are going on in our country at this time, not only issues of race, but definitely political concerns. This is not the United States that I am familiar with. So it's been traumatizing. I think it was interesting to have our presentation on trauma care, and I agree, it's important for working with our patients, individuals who are interested in breastfeeding, but I also found it helpful for myself to think about, because every time I look at the television or listen to the news, I'm re-traumatized with something significant. So that's all I'll say.
That's valid, Donna. And you may or may not have seen some heads nodding, and know that those who aren't on camera may have also been relating to that as well. So thank you for sharing that. So Tina, I see that you are sharing some resources, a YouTube video, and then your Facebook page.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I had been uploading videos to my my Facebook page for a while, and then something changed with my computer, and I couldn't upload videos anymore. So I made myself a YouTube channel just so that I could upload it somewhere and then share it. And my girls were like, "Mom, you have a YouTube channel?" They were really impressed, and they were like, "How many followers do you have?" I'm like, "I don't." Oh, they're called subscribers. My 11-year-old just told me. Sorry. How many subscribers do you have? And I said, I don't know. Like, I just did it so I had a venue to and I had like 5 subscribers. And they were like, "Oh, Mom, I'm sorry." Apparently I'm an utter failure because I don't have enough subscribers. Anyways,
well,
I just share my YouTube. Yeah, so we gotta boost my subscribers, so I'm a heroine in my daughter's eyes, I guess. But so anyways, I did share those. The only thing I really have been thinking about a lot lately is World Breastfeeding Week a lot, because it always sneaks up on me no matter how prepared I think I am. It always comes really fast. And then of course we're on vacation and it's like, it's here, you know. So and we try to always do, I have a great group of girls that I work with at WIC, and so they really are good about, you know, we kind of all do something together, but I always go out into our clinics during that week. So I make it a big to do, and it's fun because I get to I do get to see some clients in the office, but I only go into the office like 1 day a week under normal circumstances. But so I try to go out into the clinics, and it's nice because I get to put a lot of faces. We get to put faces to our conversations on the phone. And this year is, of course, I'm just like, having a hard time coming up with. And Cindy, I appreciate you sharing that your peer counselor was doing some Zoom stuff, because I thought about that. Maybe I should do some Zoom stuff, or even FaceTime or something. But so if anybody has any great ideas about like what everyone's doing for World Breastfeeding Week, I'd love to hear, or email me. I put my email in the chat box, but because this year is like, what are we going to do? What am I going to do? I want to start thinking about it now, but I'm not going to be out in clinics, I'm sure. So
right. Yeah, and
I saw that. Oh, sorry, Kara.
Go ahead.
I saw that the website. They're doing a virtual latch on.
That's cool.
So that's something that we were planning to look into.
Because I have done the latch on events before, like gone to the latch on events, and but I did look at a website like a couple of weeks back, but I haven't looked recently, so I'll have to go look again.
And Donna, I'm hoping you're capturing what's being shared in the chat box. So those resources there, you're able to copy and paste those, okay? So we can.
I'm working furiously to do that. So I may miss some of the other content material because I'm trying to get it, but yes, I am trying.
You are awesome at what you do. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, let me get back to the list here. Gina Davis, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, just echoing what everyone else has been saying. Sorry, I'm the peer counselor for Maine General WIC. It's been really hard to meet clients where they're at, and provide just support for issues that you're not getting the full picture via phone call or via text message. Sometimes we really need to see firsthand what's going on, and have no way to do that currently. We're, like Allison said, our agency is starting to see pregnant women and infants under the age of 6 months old as of this week. But I'm still stuck at home because I don't have daycare for my kids. So we're just kind of doing the best we can. And that's it.
Absolutely. Thank you. I hear those challenges, and I think that's a good thing to fall back on is trusting that you're doing the best thing that you can. You're doing the best work you can.
Kara, if I can jump in, this is Allison. Can you hear me better? I called in by phone.
Yes, a lot better. Thank you.
Okay. I would just like to give WIC a pat on the back, though, because I will say that we continue to provide services with no pause. Our clients have had benefits on time, and with so many families out of work and have that impact of lost income so unexpectedly, we've signed families up. I mean, people have worked in evenings, on weekends. I feel like WIC has definitely gone above and beyond to make sure people have services, especially food. So I have to say I'm really proud to be part of our program after this experience, for sure.
That's awesome. Thank you.
I'm going to jump in again if I can. This is Gina.
Yes.
Just want to shout out to Allison, we have a couple high-risk babies that have weight gain issues, and she's put an infant scale in the back of her Subaru and is driving around weighing babies.
Yeah. Awesome. You guys are definitely part of this network of heroes during this time. And if you have any stories or anything that you want us to share in our social media network or in a newsletter through the coalition, that we're happy to do that. We want to be highlighting the good work that's being done around the state to support these families. So please share, either emailing mainbreastfeeds@gmail.com and let us know what we can help highlight. I know that may seem like one other thing you have to do, but even if it's just a picture in one sentence or 2 sentences and no pictures, whatever you can share so we can help highlight that for you, we're happy to do that. Jen, I see you're up next, and I also just want to do a time check. We have so many awesome people left to go to share as we need to. According to our agenda, we have 5 minutes left of this connecting the dots portion of the meeting, but I think we can bleed that into the wrapping up part, and which Amanda is going to be doing. I think, Amanda, if you're okay with this, maybe once we get to wrapping up, people can just be typing in what they're taking away from today's meeting, and just spend the last 5 minutes of the meeting sharing our next, what's coming up next in terms of meetings. So that gives us about 15 more minutes to connect the dots. Okay, so we have Jen up next, Jennifer Vijay.
So as far as what goes, like Allison said, that there hasn't been a drop in service. We're seeing more participants now than we have. We are doing everything pretty much over the phone. York County Community Action has looked into getting scales that we can have or loan out to participants, kind of like we loan out breast pumps to our babies that are faltering a little bit with their weight gain and they can't get into the doctors as often. That's some things that we're looking at and looking to do. Hopefully they arrive shortly. I think they should be coming in shortly, but and like she said, we've been serving everybody as fast as we can and as efficient as we can. It has been kind of odd to not see some of these babies though face to face. As far as York County goes, I'm not 100% sure when we're going to be doing in-person services. I think our waiver is only to June 30th, but I'm not sure what the state has decided past that.
Okay.
So that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Lindsay Matsopoulos, you are up next. Lindsay and Zoe.
Hi. So definitely echoing what everybody else has said. We're really busy at WIC for sure. We've had a lot of families get on the program, which has been great. One thing that's been hard is just hearing about people's extra needs, like, toilet paper getting all bought at the store, and our families can't afford, our families can't necessarily afford to bulk up on tons of toilet paper and diapers and wipes. So that's been hard, but there's a program in the Portland area called May Needs that's been helping, so that's been really nice to see. And then on a personal note, just figuring out how to work from home with a baby. I definitely have a new respect for, well, all moms, but definitely it can be hard to like come up with innovative new ideas when I'm just feeling so personally exhausted, which I'm sure everybody can also relate to. So that's been a challenge for me personally, but it's all good.
As my kids do in school, this is like a yes, I hear you. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. She's super adorable, and you're doing great hanging in there through this meeting while trying to keep her entertained.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thanks. Nicole Hart, you are up next.
Sure. Hi. I don't think I have anything super new to say. I too am a little overwhelmed, and just, in like personally trying to figure out this balance between my family's day-to-day needs, and new parents still need help and support, with also really interrogating how am I supporting and doing anti-racist work in my personal life and in my business, and what does that even look like? So that's a lot, and I am a pretty sensitive perfectionist person, so I'm definitely putting some pressure on myself I should figure it all out today, which is ridiculous, I recognize, but struggling with that one, my perfectionist tendencies for sure. Yeah, so the world is just a lot right now, and I'm feeling that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I love that this meeting can be a place of vulnerability for all of us too, and it helps us relate to one another and know that we're not alone. Thank you. Brianna, you there?
Yes, I'm here. So I mean, some of my stuff is kind of the same, but I'll just give some updates for like the Bangor area at WIC. So we've had also some struggles with our breastfeeding peer counselor, who has had some people like needing that one-on-one help with latch and other concerns. So we did get approval to use Doxy, which is like a video platform that's very similar to Zoom. It's just very confidential. And then also, so we have that offering or offered to our participants. We've been very busy. We're also going to be even more busy soon because we're the first site to launch the EBT cards. So, which also factors into when and how we're going to open up as well. Since we're in Bangor, we don't have a huge spread compared to some of the other counties. So we're we've been doing a lot to figure all that out. And the EBT cards are a big factor in that as well. But I've been hearing a lot of, of that same kind of stress from moms. And I think one thing that I kind of related to in the presentation today was, those check-ins, those self-check-ins, and not just only for me, but also for, the new moms. I do make sure, especially nowadays, to ask if they're getting adequate nutrition, if they're maintaining hydration, and if they're getting their sleep with a newborn and all the stress that is bearing down on them as well. So I think that's really important. And then World Breastfeeding Week for us as well. We've been working on plans, and I think right now we have plan A, B, C, and D, depending on state regulations and all of that. So it's quite something, but I'm definitely open to a lot of ideas. I think our first idea is going to be like some sort of social distance picnic. We have like this big lawn area. So that's one of our ideas, but it really is going to depend on what we can do in a safe way. We're also looking into doing like Facebook Live videos, like doing fun facts of the weeks, having people send in questions. So those are some ideas that we have, and I'm definitely open to anybody has any other ideas as well. But that's pretty much what I have.
That's awesome. Thanks. Yeah, and anytime, I'll have to make sure that we're following, would Facebook Live be Bangor WIC?
We don't have our own individual, so it's under I'm pretty sure it's Bangor Public Health and Community Services.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you happen to find the link to that page and want to add it in the chat box, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure.
And any other plans that you come up with, feel free to share. I'm sure we'll be posting or sending some communication asking what people are doing, just so that we can help further communicate that too. But any of those Facebook Lives we could also share through our Facebook page.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And Tina, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Sorry, no, it took me a minute to get unmuted. No, are you talking to me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think I'm good. Thank you, though.
Great, thanks. And Verna?
No, I shared my story. I'm struggling with becoming more conscious of what's going on around me in society, and sensitivity to my families who are really struggling with what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Not just COVID, but everything else.
Yeah. There's a lot going on for sure. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to share an article that is about the research that's been done on the coronavirus and the immunity that has been found in breast milk. So I'm going to send that. It has not been peer reviewed yet. So that's something to mention, as there's just not a lot of time for peer reviewing research that's being done now. So I'm going to enter that into the box for you all to see. I'm not sure if that hyperlink works, and if not, then that one should. I'm also going to put in some other resources that I believe it was the USBC conference that Lindsay and I attended in 2018. It was a really, really transformative conference for me personally to learn a lot about race. So the United States Breastfeeding Committee does a lot of work around equity in healthcare and specifically around breastfeeding. And so my eyes were opened wide during that conference. And so I'm going to post to move my windows around here, but I'm going to share an article that shares a little bit about the history of breastfeeding in America related to African American women. And hopefully that went through okay. I think a bullet may have copied too, so I don't know if that link really worked. Let me try that again. Let me know if you can at least copy and paste the link if it's not a hyperlink for you. But I'm just going to read a quick quote, and then I'm knowing that we have a couple more minutes left. I'm going to read a quote from that article that I think is really moving, related to race, and how a lot of the focus right now in the world seems to be around Black men and the injustice that they are experiencing right now. It's definitely something that we should be thinking more about and learning a lot more about, especially since some of the people on this call may have worked with families who are Black, or the father is Black and may have been incarcerated as well. I think I've heard some conversations around incarceration and supporting families who are experiencing that. But also Black women are certainly experiencing their own injustice and systemic racism specific to their birthing experiences, and how they're 3 to 4 times more likely to die during the childbirth experience and during that period of time. So it's really helpful to learn more about that. Whether or not we work with Black women or or men every day. It's good to learn about. So I'm going to share some resources, but I'm going to read this quote really quickly from that Moms Rising article. Thank you, Amanda, for reposting that. As enslaved women alone, we helped to build the immune system of nearly 12 generations of Americans with our milk. We breastfed without lactation consultants, BOPPs, public health statistics, or social service instruction. We nursed our offspring when we could and other people's babies, oftentimes at the expense of our own. We mastered the latch while sleeping on floors and working in fields with broken hearts and bodies in much harsher conditions than we live in now. Under these conditions, we helped to build the immune system of white America without pause or thanks because we were forced to, and we are still suffering from the consequences of that today. So when we hear about how the breastfeeding rate for Black women is a lot lower than that of white women, I think it's helpful to understand the history, their experiences here. And so I will open it up for any other thoughts on that topic or anything that you've been learning about, any resources you may have too, while I copy and paste some other things into the chat box. So these are organizations that are focused on equity and birth, breastfeeding, and reproductive justice.
I want to second what you said about that breastfeeding conference, Kara. I've been thinking a lot about that this week, especially. There is another resource that I can send in called the Black Mamas Matter Alliance, and they have some literature and a toolkit and some information on there as well.
Yes, that was the last one I was going to post.
Oh, is that? Okay.
No, I'm wondering if these are actually going through okay. I'm not sure if that one went through, so let me just try hitting send again. Okay.
Oh, I might have just sent that to you.
Excellent. Perfect. Oh, okay. I can copy and paste that from here. That link might paste better. Okay. Yes, Black Mamas Matter Alliance. Each of these websites have great things. Like you said, they have a toolkit that is really fantastic. And Amanda, I think I saw you post something too.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I keep focusing on birth, and this is about breastfeeding. But the evidence-based birth website has been sending out research updates, maybe weekly, I think. But the link I just sent is their main resource website for birthing and COVID, and I've been following that a lot.
Okay, great. And Tina, yes, so like I mentioned earlier, Donna takes incredible minutes, and that is so helpful, and I'm sure she's working furiously. Donna, I won't close the meeting until I know that you have everything from the chat box captured, so take your time with that. And again, they are posted on our website. Amanda does the best she can to get those up in a timely manner. The board does review the minutes and approve them, and sometimes that takes a couple of weeks as well. So one thing I'll try to do is at least put some of those resources on the Facebook page in the meantime. And we will, again, try to get into a better practice of emailing the minutes out. So thank you for asking about that. And feel free at any time, if anyone's like, I haven't received those minutes yet, just email us, and that helps to kind of flag that for us. Okay, so I think we are ready to wrap up. Feel free, if you have any last thoughts, to type those in the chat box. But Amanda, I'll let you take it from here.
Were you saying that you wanted me to do the what are you taking away just in the chat box?
Yes, if anyone has anything in particular they want to share.
Yeah, we usually just go around and say, like, this meant a lot to me, or I learned this. So you can put that in the chat box if you want. And then what we have coming up is our August meeting, like we talked about, World Breastfeeding Week. So we will, I'm unsure if that'll be virtual. I'm assuming it will be, but we will definitely keep you all updated on what kind of innovative things we want to do for Breastfeeding Week. Please let us know if you have ideas of how to do that. I am definitely looking into the virtual latching. And then after that, we have October 1st for a meeting and December 3rd. So we will keep you updated with if they're going to be virtual or in location, or how we will plan to do that. And I think, Kara, you already said our storytelling event that we usually have in May, we moved to next May because of COVID. So we will be doing that in May. Can't think of anything else. Can you, Kara?
I think that's about it. I mean, as we've shared, we're all doing the best we can, right? And so we are having to limit a little bit of some of the activities that we would maybe want to be doing, but we are still here, and it does help to have other people say, kind of prompt us of things, or say, hey, what about this? Or I really need help with this. That kind of moves things up on our priority list. So that communication is really helpful.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we could, screen a documentary online or something and have a virtual screening, or if anybody has ideas like that, we would love to put things on during this time, but it's hard to think of what would be good.
Awesome. Do you want to read any of the comments people are leaving?
Yeah, so let me scroll up. Yeah, Tina said, thanks for all your work. Thank you for being here. I just subscribed to your YouTube. And then Nicole said, thanks for offering the time to check in. So much going on. And thank you for all the great resources. And then Kara appreciates everyone taking the time out of their busy and overwhelmed lives to join and participate today. And I appreciate that too. Berna said, thank you for the meeting. All info appreciated. Trauma presentation was helpful. And then Cindy said it was good to reconnect with peers today. That is a good feeling. I really get a lot of energy from seeing everyone on the board and everyone that joins the coalition meetings. And we've had some more attendance being virtual. So that's been, a blessing in disguise. So yeah, it looks like that is all for the comments.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being here today. And you know how to contact us if you need anything, or if there's anything we can help you with at any point. We'll be in touch, and good luck to you. Keep your heads up and be gentle with yourselves as you continue on with your days and your weeks ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Donna, for all the notes.
Yes, thank you, Donna.